Before our engagement, I, Natalia Garrett, received a gift from my boyfriend's first love, Bella Oliver. It was a video recording. In the footage, Dylan Scott, who was always gentle and refined, seemed like a completely different person, his expression cold yet excited, his behavior deliberately flamboyant. She looked at me smugly. Do you really think he loves you? He told me long ago that you're utterly boring. Throughout all these years you've been together, he comes to see me every week. After our intimacy, the sweat on Dylan's forehead hadn't yet dried. I was already exhausted, but he seemed far from satisfied. He held me for a while, then said softly, I'm going to take a shower. You should get some sleep. With that, he wrapped a towel around himself and got up. His muscular back, glistening with sweat, caught the honey-colored light, his elbow joints showing a faint pink hue. After a while, just as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard his phone ring. Dylan spoke in low tones, and I felt a gentle kiss on my forehead. He said, something came up at the company. I need to go handle it. You get some sleep. I was too drowsy to care and nodded absently before falling back into deep sleep. I don't know how much time had passed when my phone suddenly rang. The sharp ringtone jolted me awake from deep sleep, and I groggily reached for my phone. It was Dylan calling. I answered, hello, what's wrong? There was a long silence on the other end. I continued, hello? After a moment, I heard faint breathing sounds, which instantly woke me up completely. I asked, Dylan, what's wrong? Nothing. A few seconds later, his voice finally came through. In the quiet of the night, his voice sounded somewhat distorted. He said, nothing, I just tripped going up the stairs. Baby, I miss you. My heart raced, and I couldn't help but smile. I laughed and complained, why are you so clingy? You just left and you already miss me? Silence fell on the other end of the line. After a long while, Dylan spoke again, but somehow, his voice was so hoarse and low that it was almost unrecognizable. Dylan was already back early the next morning. Despite pulling an all-nighter at work, he looked refreshed and energetic, showing no signs of fatigue from staying up. I wrapped my arms around him from behind, unable to hide a hint of jealousy in my voice. How can you stay up all night and still look so alert? I only lost a few hours of sleep and I can barely keep my eyes open. Dylan chuckled and turned around to embrace me, his voice filled with affection. What's the point of having so many hardworking people at home? I work hard enough for both of us. You can sleep as long as you want. I was about to respond when I suddenly froze. There was an obvious red mark on his neck, positioned in an extremely discreet spot. Noticing the change in my gaze, Dylan explained matter-of-factly, there are mosquitoes at the office. I got bitten several times last night. He casually touched the spot and frowned. It's still itchy. Do we have any ointment at home? I was stunned for a moment. The location of that mark was too coincidental, and its shape made me think twice. But how could that be possible? Dylan and I had been together for so many years, and he'd never shown any signs of cheating. How could someone who only had eyes for me betray me? We'd been together for so long. I should trust him. Yet somehow, an inexplicable unease stirred within me, a vague sense of discomfort. I'm heading to work. Dylan had already put on his suit, an Italian custom-tailored piece that accentuated his natural aristocratic bearing. Behind his glasses, his gaze was both cool and gentle. He leaned down to kiss me softly, his movements tender, as if caring for something precious. He said, be good and wait for me at home. After Dylan left, I lounged on the sofa scrolling through my phone. A friend request popped up on WhatsApp. I recognized the woman in the profile picture. It was Dylan's childhood friend, Bella Oliver. I was momentarily confused, wondering why she would suddenly add me. Bella had essentially grown up with Dylan, but later, Dylan seemed to really dislike her. Even when we occasionally ran into her at dinner parties, he wouldn't let me interact with her much. He said Bella had lived a chaotic, promiscuous life while studying abroad years ago. He told me, you two aren't the same type of people. She has some psychological issues, just ignore her. Indeed, in the few times I'd encountered her, Bella always dressed provocatively, weaving through crowds of men with a wine glass in hand like a socialite, patting one man's shoulder here, leaning against another's arm there. When men took advantage and got handsy, she didn't get angry. Instead, she'd laugh and playfully push them away. Bella's features weren't particularly striking, the kind that would disappear in a crowd, but she had a unique aura about her. Charitably, you could call it alluring. Less charitably, it was seductive, especially when she smiled with that captivating charm. Most men were drawn to Bella, but Dylan always treated her coldly. Once when she tried to approach him, he pushed her away without mercy. He said, please have some self-respect. You could tell he genuinely found her repulsive, but Bella's obsession with Dylan never wavered. Even though he was cold to her, she never gave up. Whenever Dylan was present, her gaze would always follow him. I'd heard from people in our circle that Bella had liked Dylan since childhood, confessing to him multiple times in school, only to be rejected each time. I felt somewhat uncomfortable about it, but didn't pay it much mind, because I was certain that Dylan was completely devoted to me. But this time, I instinctively clicked on her Instagram. Her latest post was from 4 a.m. this morning. In the photo, Bella sat on a bathroom counter with her back to the mirror, wearing bright red nail polish. She was slightly turned to the side, her lipstick smudged at the corners of her mouth. Her features were ordinary, except for those eyes, utterly seductive. Her caption read, I will always belong to you. That evening, I told Dylan about Bella's message. He immediately scrolled through our chat history, and seeing only those 2 brief sentences, his brow relaxed slightly, though a hint of disgust flickered across his face. Who knows what's gotten into her this time, he said. Just ignore her. Something still felt off to me, and I wanted to ask more questions. but Dylan pulled me into his arms, gently stroking my hair. Alright, get some rest, he said. We're going to look at wedding dresses tomorrow. Don't you want to be able to get up in time? That night, I didn't sleep well. I dreamed constantly, barely getting a moment's peace. When I woke up in the morning, I felt exhausted, yet I couldn't remember any of the dream content. In the evening, Dylan's friends invited us to dinner to celebrate our upcoming engagement. During the meal, everyone was offering us their congratulations. After 5 years of dating, you're finally getting married. Dylan's such a lucky guy. You two are perfect for each other. Come on, everyone raise a glass. Just as everyone was lifting their glasses, the door swung open. Bella walked in wearing a black mini dress, and the entire room fell silent. Everyone knew she'd always had feelings for Dylan, so they'd tacitly agreed not to invite her to this kind of occasion. No one expected her to show up uninvited. Dylan's smile faded slightly, and he asked coldly, "What are you doing here?" Bella tucked her hair behind her ear. Though her features were ordinary, she had a certain allure about her. "You're getting engaged and didn't even tell me?" She smiled. "We've been friends for years, after all." Sensing the awkward atmosphere, his friends quickly said, "Come, sit here. We didn't call you because we thought you might be too busy. Since you're here, perfect timing, let's all have a drink together." Throughout the entire evening, Bella kept drinking and telling stories about her past with Dylan. "Don't let his gentle demeanor fool you," she said. "He was ruthless back in school. Once, some thug was harassing me, so after school Dylan asked him to meet at the park and broke the guy's nose. That creep never bothered me again." She looked at me, her eyes full of undisguised provocation and contempt. Everyone felt uncomfortable and could only offer awkward responses. Dylan didn't say a word the entire time, nor did he even glance at Bella. This one-woman show became increasingly absurd as Bella kept drinking until she was completely wasted. She stared at Dylan for a long time while he peeled a shrimp and placed it on my plate. He whispered to me, "Don't drink too much. Eat something, or your stomach will hurt again." Bella suddenly let out a bitter laugh, swaying as she got up and headed for the door. Dylan's expression remained unchanged, but after years together, I could see the irritation in his eyes. I sighed softly and said, "If you're worried, go check on her. You've been friends for years, after all." "No need," he said flatly. "She's nothing to me." However, as Bella failed to return, Dylan's expression grew increasingly grim. Finally, he stood up and said, "I'm going to the restroom." Soon, most of his friends had passed out, slumped over in their chairs, and Dylan still hadn't returned. I went outside to look for him and stumbled upon Bella being grabbed by a balding, middle-aged fat man. The man had his arm around her waist, shamelessly trying to take her away. Bella was too drunk to stand steady, unable to resist. Just as I was about to step forward, a figure suddenly rushed out and punched the man in the face, yanking Bella back to his side. The man was knocked to the ground. He was about to curse when he saw Dylan's imposing figure and backed down, muttering a few words before scurrying away. Dylan was furious, his eyes cold as ice. I'd never seen him show such an expression in front of others, and I even wondered if that man had stayed a moment longer. Dylan might have actually beaten him to death. In front of me, he'd always been gentle and refined. I'd never seen him like this. I stood frozen in the distance, watching Dylan grip Bella's wrist tightly. He demanded angrily, "Are you insane? Are you naturally this shameless, willing to go with any random man? If I hadn't come just now, you would have let him take you away?" Bella stared at him for a long time, then suddenly burst into tears and threw herself into his arms, holding him tight. I thought he would push her away, but he didn't. After a brief hesitation, Dylan actually reached out and embraced her. That night, Dylan had his friends drive me home, saying Bella was too drunk and he needed to wait until she sobered up before taking her home. I sat on the couch waiting until dawn, but he never came back. At noon, he finally returned. "She was making such a scene last night," he said. "We grew up together, after all. If something happened to her, I couldn't face her parents." He held me, his eyes full of affection. "There's really nothing between us. Please don't be angry, okay?" I was about to respond when I caught sight of something bulging in his jacket pocket. I reached in and pulled it out. The moment I saw what it was, I froze completely. It was an opened box of condoms.